the equilibrium is difficult. It's nutritional, it's psychological, it's philosophic, it's spiritual. All those things must be taken into account.
Let's talk about people gaining weight and being overweight in mid to late life who are eating less, walking, working out, but they can't keep their weight down.
Well, first of all, it depends on how much overweight you're talking. It's normal as we get older to gain weight. You say, well, normal is because we're accepted. No, actually, we're not supposed to be as lean at age 50 as we were when we were 20. It wouldn't be a healthy situation. We're supposed to gain some weight. There's a protective element in that. For example, in women, if you have extra fat, you'll tend to produce more estrogen and have fewer hot flashes and osteoporosis. A lot of overweight women have no problem with osteoporosis. And they say osteoporosis is a disease of very lean, small women. Yeah, very lean. They have no fat, so they're not making estrogen once their ovaries shut down. So it's not that simple that fat is bad. Yeah, of course, insulin resistance is a problem, and you don't want to be 60 pounds overweight. But it's not abnormal as we get older to gain weight. In fact, I was just reading a study last week by a really smart researcher talking about the fact that some weight gain as we get older is actually protective in terms of a lot of diseases, even cancer. Yes, excessive weight, just like the normal distribution curve for vitamin D, the right dose for the right person, including weight. But we all want to look like we're 20 years old, but forget it. That's not healthy. It's not a healthy situation. There's benefit to having a little extra fat. Fat is a very metabolically active tissue, and people that are too lean, of course, as you know, have all kinds of problems. There's long-distance runners that are too lean. The women, they don't even have periods, even when they're 30. So there's some benefit to having some extra weight. Yes, I mean, obesity is a separate issue when you're really grossly obese, and that's stressful on the heart. It leads to insulin resistance and all of that, and that needs to be dealt with, and that's because usually people eat the wrong kinds of foods. The average American eats 164 pounds of white sugar a year. That's completely abnormal and perverse. It causes all kinds of endocrine disruptions. But people who are following a good diet, eating healthy food, following good nutritional practices and exercising, at least moderately, usually they will still gain some weight, but that's not an abnormality, really.
What do you think about people that are doing these coffee enemas every day for detoxing because of the kind of world that we live in and the 79,000 toxic chemicals that are out there? What do you think about that relationship to lowering the amount of fat on our body? Does it have an effect?
Well, there's no question people that tend to be overly toxic tend to gain weight. Suzanne and I have talked about this. I think it was in one of her books where she interviewed me about this. Fat is a storage. It's metabolically active. It's an endocrine organ, we now know, but it's also a storage depot for a lot of toxic chemicals. And we live in such a toxic environment, as you and I have been discussing, our bodies can't deal with it. Our liver can't deal with it. So what the body does in its wisdom, it shunts it into storage where it's safe, puts it into fat cells. No one wants toxic chemicals in their fat cells, but at least when it's stored in the fat cells, it's not circulating. It's like on ice. It's protected. It's sequestered. It's away from the brain and the liver, and it's not circulating in the bloodstream, damaging organs. In the fat cells, it's protected. So the body, in its wisdom, faced with an onslaught of toxic chemicals, will tend to create fat just to store chemicals. Now, as you detox, we do find this routinely. As people lose these toxic chemicals and the brain says, I can relax now, I'm not being overloaded, we'll let some of this fat go because we don't need it anymore. And in its own wisdom, it'll get rid of fat. We see that routinely. In fact, there are books out now about, the detox diet, and there's some validity to that. That when people are overloaded with toxins, the body in desperation will start storing it because it can't process and neutralize this junk fast enough, especially when people are eating poor diets and taking in, coloring agents and preservatives with the food as well as from the air and the water. So the brain in its wisdom will start creating fat cells to store it. That's a problem. So, what I was talking about earlier is a normal weight gain in healthy people. It's to be expected. I'm not going to look the way I did I wouldn't want to look the way I did when I was 20. I was too thin. But in a very toxic world, the body will create extra fat, and no matter what you do, the brain is more powerful and more knowing than any of us, any doctor, any physician, any book. And it's going to hold on to that stuff. The
brain or the body?
The brain is going to hold on to that stuff. It's going to hold it on in the body. It's going to say, we're not going to let this stuff circulate. We're going to keep it in the fat cells. No matter what you do, you can cut your calories down to 600. If the brain thinks you're too toxic, it's not going to get rid of that fat, and it can override anything. It'll put you into a starvation mode and just slow your metabolism down in order to protect you from the onslaught of toxic chemicals should all that fat start coming out, all that fat start dissolving, and all these toxic chemicals get released, you get too sick. So the brain will actually override it. That's why many people on very low-calorie diets don't lose weight. They're too toxic, and the brain shuts down metabolism to protect you. It's actually a protective mechanism to keep the toxic chemicals sequestered and stored away. On the other hand, if you start eating well and eating properly, minimize the intake of toxic chemicals as much as possible and start doing aggressive detoxification, the brain gets relaxed and says, well, we can start letting some of this fat go now. So, yeah, detoxification is very important for weight loss.
Where are you at regarding probiotics?
Probiotics are critical. I've been taking them for 30 years. You know, I grew up with the wonders of chemistry. I was on antibiotics in childhood. I had a doctor that in the 1950s, when I was a very young kid, who would use penicillin. You have a sniffle, he'd come over to the house. He did house calls. Wonderful, great guy. What an idiot. Every time we sniffled, we were getting injections of penicillin.
The same thing happened to me when I was young. I used to get a lot of respiratory infections, so my whole childhood and young teenage life was on antibiotics.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's as if probiotics hadn't been discovered. And 100 years ago, we knew what probiotics were. They're absolutely critical. There are over 300 bacteria in our gut that are normal, healthy flora that need to be there, and they help with cholesterol management, immune function. Those normal bacteria really are critical they're our first line of defense for immunity.
And apparently probiotics are not all equal, are they?
Well, there's all kinds of probiotics. Well, one of the problems with probiotics is there are 300 normal flora that inhabit the gut, 300 different species, some in the small intestine, a lot of them in the large intestine, and they work together in a kind of a synergistic operation. And what probiotic could have 300 bacteria? You can't. So I use one that has 10 different bacteria. There are increasingly better probiotics available. The ones that don't need refrigeration tend to be better than the ones that do, because the ones that do need refrigeration tend to be more carelessly made. If you're going to make a probiotic that doesn't require refrigeration, you have to be real careful about it and really nurture it. So they tend to be better quality. It's good to have a probiotic with a number of different bacteria. Some of the soil bacteria are important too. We never even thought about the soil bacteria, but our ancestors were all getting some soil when they ate food. They weren't so obsessed about cleanliness and sterility. They eat dirt with the food. They get a fair amount of dirt down. And that dirt, turns out, has a lot of healthy bacteria that really have immune-enhancing effects, help keep cholesterol under control. And there are supplements now that have the equivalent of what we'd call soil bacteria. But probiotics are critical.
Do you take it after you do your enema, or what's the timeline when you take that?
Well, with the enemas, we're only going up 12 inches. The intestinal tract's over 20 feet long. It's not affecting the normal flora. It's the neurological reflux in the lower bowel, and the only thing you're cleaning out is the fecal matter in the sigmoid colon. So you're not really affecting the flora with the enemas, particularly. With colonics, where you go up 6 feet, that's different. You will be washing out some beneficial bacteria. You need to replenish that. But even though the enemas themselves aren't depleting flora, we have all our patients on a good probiotic. And I do my enemas, and then I take it before I eat breakfast once a day in the morning.
Got it. Where are you at with regard to parasites and, for example, the work of Dr. Hulda Clark?
Look, I knew Hulda Clark, and I thought she was a wonderful woman. But parasites, liver flukes are not causing cancer. I mean, I don't know why it's a big secret. She died of cancer. It didn't cure. She was doing the big mythology said rheumatoid arthritis. No, she had myeloma. I knew her quite well. I mean, it's not a secret. People know she did.
I didn't know that.
Well, yeah, I know very few people seem to know that. It's not some deep secret. She wasn't my patient. She wasn't going to be my patient. She was going to cure herself with her parasite remedies. Well, it ultimately didn't work. I mean, she was 82 or 83 or whatever. I mean, so she had a long life, and I'm not being crap or critical of her, but liver flukes are not the cause of cancer. They're not the cause of cancer. If you read her first edition of the book with 100 cases, the problem I had with that is most of the cases are cancer cases that she diagnosed herself with her zapper. Patient comes in fatigued. Oh, he has liver cancer. Patient comes in, they have a headache. Oh, they have brain tumor. But they're not formally diagnosed with biopsies. I mean, there might have been half a dozen. I don't know. I did count at one point. I don't remember what it was. Most of those 100 cases were not properly diagnosed cancer patients. They were Hulda Clark diagnosed cancer patients based on her frequency stuff. I mean, when I did my research into Kelly, I found patients appropriately diagnosed at major institutions. We knew they had cancer, and they were alive 5, 10, 15 years later under Kelly's care. In my book about Kelly, I reviewed hundreds of his cases that were properly diagnosed with biopsies at major institutions with terminal or poor prognoses who were alive 5, 10, 15 years later. And I put that in my book, One Man Alone, my review of Kelly's cases.
Right.
Finally published a year ago. With Hulda's book, she had 100 cases, most of which she diagnosed. That's not acceptable to me. It's not that I'm some stuffy conventional doctor, but you need to have some kind of standard. I mean, just because the